Everything else is going to count down, do its thing. Hello, hello, everyone. Here we are. We're at Texas Book Talk live streaming. We're live streaming on Facebook and Instagram every Wednesday from 5:30 to 6, and bringing you some really great. Well, I think they're really great, and hopefully you'll get their books and you'll think they're really great too. Texas authors, introducing you to them, telling about their works. I get to share a bit about my works. We kind of chat and maybe get some writing tips. And if you are watching live right now on Instagram or Facebook, please add some chats, messages in the chat, questions if you have for myself or my guest. And this week's guest is Susan P. Baker. And she is I'm just checking Instagram. We are live on my channel on Instagram, hopefully good to go on that side too. Susan and I met at a book festival a couple years ago, either Wimberley or Seguin. I can't remember which one it was, but we ended up exchanging books. I was fascinated by the fact that she is a retired former judge out of Galveston with a long history of being in law enforcement and judicial matters and all things. And then she, what does someone do when they retire from that? They write books about criminals and mystery and all the things. And so anyway, I was really excited I bought the Texas Justice style book.
Oh, you did?
This is an older series of hers. And so Susan, I know you have a new series that you're working on right now, or a few books that you're working on, but I would love for you first just to share a little bit about yourself, about like a little bit about your background and how you got into writing.
Well, that's what I wanted to do. And my parents said, you can't make a living writing, so you have to figure out something else. I was a product of the 60s. I was kind of a wild child. So I dropped in and out of college. I don't recommend this to anybody. It took 9.5 years to get my bachelor's. and then I started on a master's, didn't like it. And then I went to law school and worked as a probation officer, went to law school for 3 years. And then I practiced law, but I always was writing something and couldn't really get published. And then before I ran for office, I wrote a mystery. And this is the first book of my Mavis Davis series. And it was kind of just a fun thing I was doing with my critique group. And it got published by St. Martin's Press not long before I started running for office. So I was donating copies all over the county when I'd go out politicking. And so they introduced everybody that was running for an office, but I got 2 introductions because I also donated the book. And so it was a really good political tool. And then I really didn't publish anything. Well, I got elected and I was on the bench for 12 years full time. And then I worked as a visiting judge for 12 years, so on and off. And I really didn't get anything else published till after I had left. But during the time I was on the bench, I spent 6 years researching murdered judges in the United States. And so right after I left the bench, Aiken Press, which I think is now called Wild Horse Media, published my book, Murdered Judges of the 20th Century. And I also wrote a little divorce book. They put that out too. That was 2003 or 2004. And then I started.
What does that mean, murder judges? What does that mean?
That means people who were murdered.
Oh, murdered judges.
Murdered.
Oh, I thought. Oh my gosh. Okay. I got you now. All right.
So I have those 2 nonfiction books, but everything else is fiction. And when people read them, they're like, I think I see you in here, or I bet some of that stuff is stuff that you heard on the bench or when you were a lawyer or when you were a probation officer. And I'm like, yeah, really? So
I can only imagine like you'd be sitting there, whatever, listening to the trial going on or whatever, the presentation, and you'd be like, that's something I need to tuck away into, like put that one of my characters, this needs to happen.
And my last book, not the one that's fixing to come out, but the last one actually was based on some real stuff that happened in Harris and Galveston counties. It's Defensible Murder is the name of it. It's the 5th in the Mavis Davis series. But I got the idea, and my sister-in-law was a supervisor in the district clerk's office. And I called her one day, and I'm not going to say the name of the person, but I said, I'm going to kill Joe Jones or whatever. She's like, what? That wasn't not the name of the person. I said, I'm going to kill her. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I'm putting her in a book and I'm going to kill her. Well, I knew she was already dead. So I could write this story, fictionalize this story. So it wasn't that hard. I had to write the book around my make believe characters, other characters, and set in Houston. But some of the stuff that happened had really happened in Harrison, Galveston County with this woman who was basically, she was involved in the baby selling business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but the one that's coming out, I just finished the read through. I read everything, and this is, we talked about advice to any writers that are listening.
Yeah.
Always read your book aloud. It's amazing what you will find. I mean, your draft. It's just amazing. It takes hours because you make these little corrections, but also you can't see a lot of stuff when you're just looking at it on the screen. And
That's
yes,
how that's how I actually do my, even after my proofreader does, I actually proofread my book by reading my Audible. And when I read through the Audible, then I'll catch things.
yeah, it's amazing. People think that, well, I know so many people that write, or I've known over the years, but they think that they're through when they send it off to an editor, but you're not through.
No.
Patricia Highsmith, you know who she was?
Say it
Famous
again.
Patricia Highsmith.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, she was a famous, really thriller writer. And she said that she would continue writing her books up until the time of publication, till they went to print. And that's really kind of what you have to do.
It's funny because I feel like I follow Friends in Fiction. I don't know if you follow Friends in Fiction, but they talked about, like, one of the topics that came up that I've also chatted with some of the authors I've had on here are like, how do you know when your book is done? I'm like, that's a really good question, because like even today when I cleaned the baby up, the messy baby, cleaned the messy baby up this morning, sent it off, and then even after I sent it off, I was like, ooh, I need to change the color of his shirt to canary. I need to change this, and I was like, still already editing more things, and I was like, okay, just no, you need to let her get back to you, and then you can change, but I do think that it's something that for me, it just is, once I'm in the character, and in the scenes, and I'm in the book, it kind of takes over. There's a part of my brain that's just kind of continually kind of looping through stuff. And, yeah.
And
So
so
tell me
you're
about,
working on, I'm sorry.
no, it's okay.
You're working on the third in your series, but you're sort of changing the tone of your book.
I am. So I started with, it's a Texas Wine Trail series for folks who don't know. And the first two books, Cactus Christmas and Cactus Wedding, it's like a Hallmark-like story, but it's set in real places in Fredericksburg in the Hill Country, and there are real wineries, real wine. I talk about the process of making Texas wine and all of that. But it's it's a fun, fictional, kind of uplifting, fast story, kind of Mary Kay Andrews, Mary Alice Monroe kind of vibe to it. And at least I hope so. That's what I aspire to. They're amazing authors. And so this third one, though, I dove into a mystery. So it's a mystery on the wine trail. And it was my first mystery to write. And I have to say, there were some moments where I figured things out and I thought, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then I kind of had the panic mode of like, oh, that's not going to work exactly how I thought. Let me think this through. Let me rework this. Let me, and there was some stuff going on, but mostly it was really fun to try to figure out how to introduce the tension and introduce the clues, but not give away too much so that the reader knows, but also not be too confusing, and just kind of have like, it was kind of this tapestry of different, and I have like multiple kind of things going on, multiple characters that have arcs happening. And it was really fun to write. So I was excited. It's still set in Fredericksburg, but someone's tampering with things on the trail. Something's happening. And I got to highlight some new characters and kind of dig into their personalities. And yeah, so.
You remember that I lived in Fredericksburg for a while.
Oh, that's right. Yes. And it's changed so much. I mean,
that's what I hear. Yeah, I'm glad I moved when I did.
Yeah.
Airbnbs have taken it over.
Oh, 100%. And I touch on real issues in the book, probably similar to what you do in your books, where I talk about the water issues. I I talk about the fact that there's like 65 wineries and growing, that there's so many permits being given to wineries still. There is a big my book has a very I introduced in book 2, and which has led into the mystery in book 3 of the California and the Texas rub of the Californians coming in with their wine, and they're so there's a lot of like real actual things that are issues in the hill country. Shortage of workers because there's no rental property because everything is for tourists. Just like all those issues that trying to help inspire people to go visit, but also like help them understand how hard it is to grow and cultivate wine and grapes in the hill country and in the high plains in Texas. It's different than California or anywhere else. Just yeah, I don't know. So it's sort of informational, but also hopefully inspires people. It's a guidebook. On the back of each book, there's a list of all the places so people can go to the wineries and stuff and visit. So yeah.
That's a good idea. Have you had any dead bodies in the out with the grapevines yet?
Not yet. So I haven't killed anyone yet.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, you got to kill some people.
I know. I haven't gone to the murder mystery. I've just done the mystery part, but yeah.
Mine have murder.
I feel like, yeah, maybe there needs to be there. We need to go all the way into, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, some people like, so yours are cozies, really.
They're cozy. Totally. It's like a fun, fast, short read. My books are not long, kind of meant to be like a 4 or 5 hour, 6 hour read. Like
how long?
So generally my books are actually, I mean, this one doesn't have a cover on it. I mean, they're a good size, but the way the layout is makes it that way. They're actually around 35,000 words or so.
Really?
They're meant to be just real tight and quick. And I just finished Mary Kate Andrews' Summers at the Saint that came out, and it's twice as long as my book. and it's interesting. I don't know. I have like part of me wants to in the future try like a full like fiction, contemporary fiction, 65,000 words or whatever. The other part of me, because of the series, is supposed to be like kind of fast and fun and just beach read kind of, but like a light beach read. I'm kind of okay with the fact that it ends up being, I do this whole arc and everything within this condensed period. I don't know. How do you feel about your books? Like,
well, this one I hope it'll be out in July. It was supposed to be 70,000 words, but it's 86.
Oh my gosh. So do you find yourself just like describing everything and just like, how does,
I never used to describe enough, and so I thought, well, I'm going to put more what people are wearing, and I don't do it ad nauseum, but so I am doing more of that. So my Mavis Davis Mysteries. There's 3 women. Mavis is the main detective, and then her sidekick Margaret. She's known since high school, and she's like the office manager. And then there's Candy, who was the half-day high school worker. But Candy's aging. Margaret and Mavis don't age. So now Candy's a student at Houston Community College. But so I've given Candy 2 or 3 chapters in this book from her viewpoint. So Mavis's chapters are in first person and Candy's aren't. And but I don't know why they get that long. I just can't seem to write short.
But you know what? You have multiple characters that you're fleshing out in chapters, and mine are different. There's generally, I have characters, but it's generally around the main character, Kate. But like, so some characters might have a chapter of what's happening with them, but it all kind of ties into what's going on with Kate and her arc. And so I don't know. Yeah, I feel, yeah, it's something I wonder about.
I was thinking about eventually making a series with Candy in it, but I have so many ideas that I wrote a book called Ledbetter Street that's set on a street similar to Post Office Street in Galveston, and it's actually women's fiction. There's a trial in there, but it's not criminal; it's civil. And I thought it would be a really good basis for a cozy mystery series. but I haven't gotten there yet because I'm writing all these other things. So I started writing the third book in what I call my Lady Lawyer series
Yeah, tell me about that.
last year. What's mother daughter criminal defense lawyers? I only have two and a half, but my father was a lawyer and a judge. And when I was younger, much younger, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could practice law with my father? Well, by the time I actually, when I went to, since I did everything sort of the long way around, once I went to law school, I was a probation officer. He actually took the bench at the same time I got into law school. So that never happened. But I thought it'd be really cool. So I have mother daughter partners, and the daughter is really the main character. But Irma, the mother, is a real eccentric. She likes to think she's a Southern belle, but she's a hard charging, cussing, smoking, drinking. And it's funny because when I wrote the first book, Irma was 65 and I was in my 50s. And now I'm 74 and Irma's still 65. But it was just, I saw some things when I was on the bench, some lawyers that behaved very badly. And I thought, I wonder if anybody's ever thought about murdering him. That guy's a real, you know what, So I had a lot of fun writing the first one, and then I didn't write the other one for a long time. So I expect people just to assume that everything's, like we used to say copacetic. Don't worry about the time changes and stuff. But the first Mavis book came out in 88 or 89, and she had a 65 yellow Ford Mustang, and
Nice.
somebody put on Amazon that there's just no, because I put it out now that I'm putting everything out myself. Oh, there's no way. Well, actually, in Galveston, where I just moved from, there was someone who lived down the street from me that had a 65 yellow Ford Mustang. I mean, I'm talking, well, one person sold it to the other, still on the street. But people just have to suspend their disbelief. But Irma and
fact is stranger than fiction, right?
yeah, the second book in the Lady Lawyers is Death of a Rancher's Daughter, and it's actually set in Fredericksburg. And it's about a murder of a rancher's twin daughter out in the country of Fredericksburg. And they hire, well, what happened was I was sitting in Bandera, and this is where I kind of got the idea for it. And in walks this lawyer that was when I was sitting as a visiting judge after I was off the bench full time. And then walks this lawyer, and I thought, boy, she looks just like this lawyer I know in Galveston. Well, it was her. And so she came up the bench, we were talking, and I said, well, what are you doing up here? And she said that she had a client who was a rancher. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So in Death of a Rancher's Daughter, Irma has some old friends that are ranchers in Fredericksburg, and she handled the estate work when he died. So her best friend is the surviving widow, and it's her twin daughters, and one of those was murdered. So Irma and Sandra go up to Fredericksburg to try the murder trial. And I actually put a lot of sort of local color in there, showing some of the prejudice that people have against Hispanic people because the defendant's Hispanic. And actually, I've had a couple of people say, Fredericksburg is just like that. And I said, yeah, no, what it was when I wrote the book. So, but the third one is, what is the third one about? Let me think a minute. Oh, the third one has a very current subject matter. It has to do with white supremacy, but the sixth Mavis Davis one that will be coming out this summer, I'm not even going to tell you what the very political topic is, because you find out about a third to a half way through the book why this man was murdered, but you don't know because it was real suicide. So they hire Mavis because the widow says, I don't think it was suicide. I think it's all a big mistake and it was really murder. So they hire Mavis to go around and figure out, was it really suicide or was it murder? And then you find out why he was murdered, what's going on. It's a very political, hot topic that I can send you an advanced reader copy next week if you want to read it.
Yeah, I would love that.
But you can't tell people what's really going on.
Yes. No, I won't. I won't say anything. It's so interesting. I find so while I haven't dug into the murder yet, I haven't murdered people yet. Although we're getting closer. I did dig into playing around with public opinion and rumors, and like how perception can be shaped by a few people saying a few things to other people, and like kind of game of telephone kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of that, like people are so and it's not just in Fredericksburg. I think in a lot of places in the country,
Nationwide.
yeah, people are very fearful. They're very protective of their own, and I think that it's that whole, I really address that whole divisiveness of us and them, whatever that us or them is. It's like I bring that up in the book. And so that was a fun theme to try to figure out how to do, and make kind of a point with that in a more lighthearted book, not a,
Well, I
yeah.
think that I mean, it's fun to write light, airy stories, but I really think it's important to have a message in your book. I mean, how else can we really express ourselves politically without someone doxing us or whatever? And they might do it anyway.
Yeah.
But I've tried to put something of import in each book. You might not ever figure out what it is, but I know what it is. So, like the one with the baby selling, it's human trafficking is a big issue.
Yeah.
Um, the one, the very first Mavis, no, yeah, the very first Mavis book had to do with gambling problems and but also had to do with lawyers' arrogance and
Hmm. Wait, okay, so can you read your books? So I did write my books in the series, each book, that you could read it as the first one or read it alone, although you probably would want to go back and find out, kind of what came before. Are yours similar in
yeah,
Mavis
sure.
Davis?
So in every book, Mavis says, "This is me, Mavis Davis, and I'm a private eye," and something about her red hair, and yeah, and who the characters are. You have to do that, and you can go back and forth, um, but well, it's not. It would be good if they would buy all six books.
Of course. Well, and I think that people want to. That
Pardon me?
people want to. I find that people want to, and that was one of the things that I didn't know I was going to write a series as my first book, my first attempt. But for some reason, my gut told me to call it a series, and
Yeah.
then it ended up kind of prophesizing itself. And people do. They go, they'll buy the next book, and then they'll be like, now I need to get all three for so and so friend, or they want to make sure that they've read all of them. And
Yeah.
I'm also the same way. I love a series. I love to read from the beginning to end. If it's a subject, if it's a series I really like. I did that. I don't know if you heard of Jess Lurie. She's a really great fiction murder mystery series. It's like an alphabet murder series kind of thing. And I mean, she wrote a ton of books that I pretty much read every single one in that series. Um, but okay, so how many books total have you written?
Published, you mean?
Published? Well, yeah, because I was going to say you probably written a lot more than published. Yeah.
Well, this will be my 15th. But
Wow.
when I was younger, when I was say 40, I could write, I could practice law, I could write, I could do all this. I would just had so much more energy, and I didn't have any health issues. And like now I have dry eyes. So if I sit in front of the computer too long, my eyes start burning. And so I try to figure out something else to do. I would like to be able to write like I did when I was 35, 40, 45, even 50. But, and I see all these people that are putting out multiple books per year. And actually, I had a goal last year. I was going to put out 3 books, which is why I have 2 in the works. But then I decided to move and I had to sell my house, but I had to do all these improvements on my house, blah, blah, blah. I had some health issues. So if I can do 1, maybe 2 a year, that would be okay. And I'm not really trying to make any money. I have a nice retirement, but you have to do something. I don't know what people do if they don't. I've asked these people that, well, here where I live now is an over 55 community. They have games every day. Well, my mother lived to be 90. My grandmother lived to be 90. I am 74. I'm not going to sit around and play games for the next 16 years. I
No,
just couldn't do it.
I
I
couldn't.
don't do it. I play on Mondays and Tuesdays. I've decided I do need to meet these people. And so I play bridge, I play poker, I play bingo. Mondays and Tuesdays are my best days for that. and then I do other stuff, and they're like, "Why didn't you come to the blah blah blah?" Well, I was writing my book, but yeah, you got to do something, and so writing is my thing.
I
I
agree.
I know a lot of people just sit around and watch TV, which I do when my eyes are burning at night and I can't, write anymore. But
Yeah,
um,
but it's like for me, I have to my brain has to be engaged in
yeah,
something. I have to do some and it was funny. I went to Port Aransas this last weekend to camp. I rented an RV and camped on the beach and finishing up the last manuscript and also celebrating my birthday and just all the things.
happy
And
birthday.
and I'm sitting there and I'm reading. I was also getting an opportunity to just sit and read, be disconnected from everything. So I'm reading MK's latest book, and I'm the way it happened. I had to park behind like a resort like area where the guys come and they set all the chairs up and they put the little signs and they put they have the umbrellas and they have the names etched on the little placard of the family name, and they have to have it early in the morning and then they all come out, and it's this kind of resort thing. Well, it was the only spot that I could find for my RV to park at the time when I pulled in, so I stayed there. And so I'm sitting there and there's these families coming and going, and I'm watching the interactions between the people waiting on them and the different types of families and the different, and their placards. And all of a sudden I'm just like, thinking up all of these scenarios and the characters and what's happening and what happens on the beach and something gets, and I'm like literally starting to write book 4 of like what's going to happen in book 4. And I'm just like, it's just, I think that's the great thing about having an imagination and being curious and leaning into like I just watch people all I'm fascinated by people's I watch their mannerisms and just like how they interact, how they relate, and then putting that into characters. Like I use that in my characters. So
They used to say, "Go sit in the mall and just listen to people talk."
yeah.
Some of the people in my critique group sometimes they say, "Well, she didn't answer the question." Well, you don't. People don't always answer questions. You
Mm-mm.
know, you try to make it. I try to make it as the way people really are, and they don't always do what you want them to do, and people are not always polite, and they're not always in a good mood, and so I mean, building characters. One of the people in my critique group doesn't like my characters, and she says, "Well, she's so rude. Well, she was ugly to her or whatever." Well, yeah, that happens sometimes. Someone's in a bad mood. But I mean, you write people as they are. Otherwise, it's like reading fairy tales where everybody lives happily ever after.
Exactly. And I think that that's something like with this third book I'm starting to get into, where I'm starting to dig into coloring in the textures of the characters, because I think, as a new writer, every book you're going to get better at having writing tension, having things be unresolved, having the characters like all of a sudden they're saying things, you're just writing it out. You're like, wow, that was a lot. Okay. And you just, I feel like, that's the fun part of writing. I have to say, like, if you were to share a writing tip with anyone, I guess specifically because you mostly all write mysteries, right?
Yeah, but now I do. Yeah. Well, I'm really that read through thing. Read everything aloud. I mean,
Yeah.
people think they need to do that, but it is shocking. And I'm going to write. I'm part of this women's. What's the name of the group? Stiletto Gang, and blogging online. And I do first Tuesday of the month. So my topic for next Tuesday is going to be echo words. And when you're reading aloud, you realize, oh my God, I use the word so all the time, or I use actually, or really, and you pull that stuff out. And if you don't read it aloud, you don't see it on the page. What they used to say in the old days is look at your printed copy and you'll be surprised what's in there. Well, who prints out a copy? Well, actually, back then you didn't print out copies. You typed each one.
Yeah.
But then people, when they got printers, started printing them out and then going through them and all. And yeah, I did that a few times, but
I do think that like publishing has changed in a way that it is more accessible for people to do on their own, which is great. But I
yeah,
think that you can't cut the corners on the quality. I mean, you have to take all the steps. You have to have the right editors. You have to go through the whole process. You have to, even after the editors, you'll still catch things. So like you have to really care about what you're putting out there. And
yeah, you do. One of my Mavis books, Mavis got arrested in, I think it was Montgomery County, and the next morning she was in the Harris County Jail. Well, they had sent me the final, almost final copy. The publisher did, and I was like, "Oh my God, nobody caught that." And this was my final read. Actually, it was copy editing stuff I was looking for. I was like, "Wait a minute, I have to cure that. How did Mavis get from Montgomery County to Harris County?" And so I had to go back and rewrite that. So you really just have to, well, like Patricia Highsmith, keep writing till the very end if you
Till the
can.
very
But if you're like me, you get to the point where you're just so sick of that book and want to move on to the next one.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm still kind of in love with it a little bit, but because it's a new baby.
Yeah.
But when my editor Megan gives me back my line and structural edits in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then I'll be like, oh God. And I'm sure, and the thing is, having a really good editor tell you things like, like she had me cut a whole beautifully written chapter in my first book. She was like, doesn't serve the plot, cut it. Just like, so, I think that having someone that's not afraid to tell you exactly and give you the direction. And there's a couple points in the book that I've realized that I'm like, if I need to add more padding, if I need to stretch the arc out a little bit more, I can add those. And so I'm kind of, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. So
We're at different stages, you and I. But I have to say, I have another granddaughter that does some editing for me, and she has caught things that it's a generational thing. Well, she's like 2 generations behind me, But if I didn't have her, there's some things that would be in this book that's going to be coming out. Which, by the way, the name is The Underground Murders.
Okay. Underground Murders.
Yeah,
Mavis Davis.
Mavis Davis #6. But she
July.
and I was like, oh my God, like I had Mavis make a referral to this game that we used to play back in the 70s. And she said, Nana, that game hasn't been produced for 30 years. Okay, well, we'll do something else. But see,
That's true. That's
yeah,
true.
so it's good to have other people look at your stuff and kind of bring you up to snuff on things.
It is 100%. Well, so
Yeah.
now, what's the best way for people to find you, find your work?
I have an Amazon page. Well, all my works on Amazon, but you also can get the ebooks on any other distributor like Kobo or Matchwords or whatever it is. But I have my webpage is www.susanpbaker.com, and then I have a personal Facebook page, and I have a legal writer Facebook page, and I have never been as active on like Instagram and everything as I should be. And a lot of that is generational too. It's just so much to learn. And I'm bamboozled sometimes, like having this other granddaughter here helping me with this today.
Yes.
I would have spent way more hours trying to figure this out than we did yesterday and today, because it's just so new to me. So, but anyway, Amazon, just Google Susan P. Baker. I'm on there. You can read about some cases I had in the past.
That's so cool. Now, are you planning to do any book festivals or anything around Texas coming up?
I'm doing the Galveston Women's Conference in Galveston. I do that every year. There's hundreds of women that go to that. It's a great thing. They have nationally known authors and speakers, and it's a really good thing the chamber puts on. Giddings usually invites me to go to Giddings, which the first year I went, it really was for children's writers, but they're so nice. And I didn't care that it cost me money. I liked meeting these people at the library there. And so I've applied again this year. And then there's a church in Galveston, Moody Church, that has a 2-day, they used to call it the Seaside Treasure Festival at the end of November. But now they call it the Moody Market. And I sold a lot of books there. There's one other writer that's there, and she's a twin, and they usually have the table down behind me or something, and it's kind of fun to visit with them. So I haven't been as active marketing this year as I should be because I've been busy moving. And
that's why I'm really ramping up the marketing and PR for this book this year. I took 2 years off, so people were kind of upset with me and waiting for book 3. So I'm excited to push it out. It's, and I also, it was nice to have the time to kind of get to a place where I could really write. I could give it
Yeah.
the attention it needed. Um, and now I'm figuring out I'll be doing, it's an October 1st release. So which is Texas Wine Month. So I'll be
Oh,
doing a
there
big,
you go.
yeah, yep, doing a big push there. Possibly an RV book tour if I can work that out all over Texas. So yeah, it's working
Yeah.
out some details right now, but
So would
yeah.
you do signings at the different wineries around Texas?
I do. I do. There's two wineries in particular in Fredericksburg that I partner with, and I'm doing big events with. Um, in the past, I've had books at different tasting rooms, that sort of thing. And then I do like holiday markets and stuff like that because that really is always a great win. People want stocking stuffers, they want gifts for friends that are book
Right.
lovers, so it works really well. Um, so we'll see what happens this year. If I end up doing this RV book tour, then it's going to be going to RV resorts all over because there's a lot of snowbirds. From being a full-time RVer, there's a lot of folks that are, want to read a book that has travel, wine, RV life.
Yeah.
It's a, fast, fun read. Yeah. So,
So you travel by yourself?
mhm.
So you're
Well,
not
my dog.
married, you don't have somebody to carry your books or anything? I don't either.
I
Sure.
do not. I know. I wish I need to. I don't know if I'd want. Yeah, I don't know what I should do about that. But I need.
Full time anymore, but I have a friend whose husband does all this stuff for her, and it would be good. Something like she told me, oh, when I was living in Galveston a couple of years ago, well, you could meet this, you could go to this book club in Galveston, Houston, that meets at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, are you crazy? I'm going to drive myself through the Houston rush hour traffic to meet with this women's breakfast group at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't have a husband to drive me there, you know.
Mm,
And when I have so many books now that when I go someplace, I have a wagon that
yeah.
I did something this summer. I did a signing at at an art walk last month. Yeah, but I had to park 2 blocks away. I have so many books that they're packed. They're big in plastic bins. They were sliding off because they're piled up. I need a bigger wagon. Going down the street, lugging this wagon up to the back of this art gallery, and so
Yeah.
it's a pain sometimes.
It's it's a lot. You have to like pick and choose and what to do when it's like that because I'm hoping some of these events like I'll just ship books directly. But yeah, like I did that in Winsboro. I did the book festival in Winsboro, and same thing with, I had Dottie, my dog, and I've got this wagon and I'm doing trips. And of course she's pulling me because she wants to go sniff something. And I'm like, no, and trying to balance all the things and like, yeah,
If you
it's,
ship your own books, it's a good idea. But over the years I've been doing this, I've heard all these stories about books not arriving.
ooh,
Yeah. So
yeah,
you can't rely on publisher, but you are publishing your own. So you would ship your own, I
yeah,
guess. But
yeah. I'd be shipping depending on how it goes, I'll be for the first time, if it goes well and I know how many people trying to gauge this right now because before I was doing print on demand through either KDP or through in Ingram Spark. Um, if I ended up getting a certain amount of volume, then I'm going to try to go through a printer where I can get lower cost. But that means that they have to, I have to trust that they're going to ship, that it's going to look right, that's going to, so there's a lot of things for me to figure out for this.
yeah.
But I've got a little bit of time.
Well, if you
So
live to be 100, you have a lot of time.
exactly.
You're young.
Oh my gosh, yes, I don't feel young all the time, but yeah, I'm grateful that I'm able to do the things that I can do still, and I'm excited to just be back in the process again. So
Good. Yeah.
um,
Maybe we'll cross paths again.
I sure hope so. I sure hope
Yeah.
so. It's so good to see you again, and good to talk to you. And hopefully, everyone who watches this is watching or watches this later is going to find Susan's books, the Mavis Davis series. I have some Instagram posts and Facebook posts about that series with a link in Instagram where you can find it. So definitely check it out. And that latest book, maybe July.
That's my plan. The
Okay.
underground murders. Yeah.
Underground Murders. Yes.
Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks, Susan, so much for joining me. I'm going to end this live stream for everyone, and then we can kind of wrap up after. But
Okay. Thank
thanks,
you,
y'all.
Heather.
We'll see you next week.